will next have John Davis.
Honorable Chair and distinguished commissioners, I've hand-delivered this to you because the staff of the Long Beach Commission has removed lots of pages from my submission and posted it on the website. So please read this one thoroughly. It contains all the documents the Coastal Commission Long Beach staff removed. In regard to my testimony today, I'm asking the Commission to request the Executive Director to provide a notice of opportunity for a hearing provided in Section 30812 of the Coastal Act to record a violation against the permittee and its successors for 591-463, the one Patricia McPherson just spoke about. I further request that pursuant to Section 30809, the Executive Director issue a cease and desist order to the permittee and its successors. In regard to this permit, the permittee failed to comply with the permit findings that required the applicant to place a deed restriction on the deed for the riparian corridor section of the freshwater marsh flood control system. A deed restriction was replaced on the corridor, but in 2016, 25 years after the permit was issued, the deed restriction was not placed by the permittee as required. Furthermore, the easement was placed on a residential lot. This is a flood control system, and a residential lot is not zoned for flood control. I hereby report this as fraud against the state and federal government as a violation of the CDP. The CDP required an entity named the Biona Wetlands Foundation manage the project permanently. The authorized manager consisted of the State Lands Commission, City of Los Angeles, McGuire-Thomas Partners, and Playa Vista and the Friends of the Biona Wetlands. It never managed the project. An unauthorized entity declared to the commission it was now the manager and is fraudulently submitting reports to this Coastal Commission and federal agencies and disregarding the gas that you saw in boiling up in the freshwater marsh. This is a dangerous place. This is Aliso Canyon on steroids. And in addition to the threat of fire and explosion, we now add the risk of flood. The bylaws for this fraudulent entity claim that the Secretary of State of California and the City of Los Angeles appointed directors to it. This is who you're dealing with and getting reports from, and it's patently false that the Secretary of Resources and the City of Los Angeles appointed directors. It's only Playa Vista. It's their alter ego, and they're not authorized to report on this matter. 591-463. It's old, but it's still in effect, and it's been abrogated in so many ways. This project is a flood control mitigation for Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the $8 billion Playa Vista project. The permittee failed to obtain a flood control permit prior to or after the issuance of the CDP. This commission could not authorize a flood control mitigation unless the applicant first obtained a flood control permit from the County Department of Public Works and Flood Control District. This represents fraud in that the applicant was required to obtain all the necessary permits for the flood control project prior to the CDP being issued by this commission, and now represents public endangerment and further fraud. And there are so many other frauds that I don't even have time to discuss with you that have been filed as complaints to enforcement. The flood control project, called the Freshwater Marsh System, was not completed. The Salt Marsh 50-year flood control mitigation portion was not permitted or completed, leaving only a partially completed system, which is only good for a 1-year flood event and not for a 50-year event as required by the permit. In regard to, the failure of the permittee to obtain a flood control permit must be addressed by this commission, since this commission is directly responsible for final approval of this major flood control project. All of the residents of this $8 billion project relied on this commission to ensure the flood control project was fully permitted prior to the issuance of the coastal development permit in 1991. The commission failed the public in this respect. It is now time for the commission to right this wrong and to protect the public's health and safety. If you've ever been to the Playa del Rey area and the Bayona wetlands, you will see how many residents are affected by this flood control project that was never permitted by Los Angeles County. This commission, I don't understand how its staff failed to make sure that the applicant had a flood control permit from the Los Angeles County Department of Public Works Flood Control District prior to its application and prior to the approval of this permit. This must be addressed. It's not just a matter of explosions and fire, it's also a matter of protecting the people and infrastructure from flood, and it is your direct responsibility to address this, and it should be done through a cease and desist order as I have requested prior. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Davis, if you could see our staff at the conclusion of public comment, we would appreciate that.